Because if you don't reflect, you miss the significance of life's experience. Just getting older does not make you wiser until you stop and reflect on it. Hello, welcome, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of you. Any of you who aren't celebrating Christmas, I do hope that the spirit of the season has touched you and you are having a wonderful, wonderful holiday. I know 2020 does not look like any of the years before, but there is something so magical about this time. So happy holidays to all of you. And thank you so much for joining me last week on the Business of Happiness podcast as we interviewed the really phenomenal and fascinating Dr. Courtney. I'm sure you all agree with me. It just was so interesting. She had such great insights, and I'm just so inspired by her. Living her dream in the Big Apple, beautifying smiles all around her, but mostly it's just her positive attitude is infectious. She's blowing up Instagram with her incredible videos and inspiration. So thank you again for joining me. Today we are talking about a gift. I'm bringing gifts to you on Christmas Day. Yes, I'm bringing you my wonderful Business of Happiness podcast family, some great gifts. And the first one is the gift of reflection. I couldn't imagine a more appropriate time for us to have this conversation. So I'm so excited to share the insights with you and the power behind reflection as we look forward to 2021. Can't believe I'm saying that. And then next week, which will be the 1st of January, the first day of 2021, Mr. John Laurito will be joining us. Oh my gosh, I can't even believe that I'm starting my year out interviewing John Laurito. You are going to just be so inspired by that podcast episode, by the interview for Mr. John Laurito. He's incredible. Talk about a leader. He is the leader of leaders. This is the man that inspires and leads Fortune 500 CEOs and teaches them how to lead their teams. So this is going to be of enormous value to you. But thank you again for being here today on Christmas Day. And I am so excited to share with you some gifts. The first gift I'll tell you about, which has been one in the making for me and a dream of mine, so I'm so excited to share it with you, is we have a private Facebook group. It's called the Business of Happiness Hive. Come on over and find us. The gift is yours. You are welcome. The whole purpose of this is to spark conversation between all the business leaders and entrepreneurs and leaders of their own dreams who have found value in this podcast. Let's share what we have with each other. I'd love for us to have some great conversations on there. I'll be giving you some behind the scenes looks at how podcasts are created and interviews and some little outtakes from some of our interviews. So that will be the resource there, but also some of my show notes. So for example, today I'm going to give some ideas and suggestions and a top 10 list. I'll put all of those over there on the Business of Happiness Hive. So come on over, join us, look for us on the Business of Happiness Hive. And let's get this conversation sparked. Today, we are going to talk about reflection. So I can't think of when there was a better time to do this and a better opportunity. Reflection turns experience into insight. If there's ever been a year of intense experience, 2020 has been it. We have all been through a ton. And I know that this Christmas, this holiday season, doesn't look like what we had hoped it would. But there is enormous magic in what we do have. And that is a little bit of stillness and an opportunity to reflect. I keep thinking back to previous holiday seasons, and if you're a busy mom, a working mom, or just a mom in general, you know that the Christmas season hits, and every week there are so many things happening. We have piano recitals and school concerts and parties for different classrooms, and everyone wants to do some presentation of everything they've been working on all year, not to mention work events and work Christmas parties, and trying to figure out where to put everything on the calendar, and then the added stress of more extended family coming or traveling. It gets to be a lot. I remember for so many years when my kids were toddlers thinking, this is too much. They can't handle all of this. The gingerbread house making and the breakfast with Santa, it just became overwhelming. And here's the gift of 2020. I literally last weekend sat by a stream in the snow. A week before Christmas, I had time to sit and have some quiet space for myself. I've not felt this calm in any Christmas season within the past 10 years of my life, maybe more. It's really a miracle. So this is why right now is the best opportunity for a moment of reflection. So why is reflection so important? Reflection is the key to progress. It's the key to growth. It's the key to growth in business. It's the key to growth in our personal growth journey. It's the key to growth as a parent and in all our relationships. It's that secret something that lets you learn from what you've experienced, but only if you give yourself that opportunity. You know, John Maxwell quotes Julius Caesar, who said, "Experience is the teacher of all things." And I love it when John Maxwell takes quotes and says, I'm going to change it to make it my own, because he's right. Experience is the teacher of all things, but only if you reflect on it. We've all experienced so much this year, but can we take the lesson and leave the pain? Can we give ourselves a moment to be still, to pause and take it all in and see what the message has been for us, and then allow ourselves to dream as we go forward? It's a powerful motivator too. When you pause and reflect and give yourself honest evaluation of what your experience has been, and then realize whether it is or isn't something that you're happy with, is or isn't something you want to work on, is or isn't something that has been a strength of yours, now you can have great motivation going forward, because you can recognize, where did I hit those goals that I had for myself, and where did I fall short? Where do I need more support? Where do I need to work more on certain things? Because if you don't reflect, you miss the significance of life's experience. Just getting older does not make you wiser until you stop and reflect on it. So this is something that we've done at Embrace Orthodontics. I have to pause here and just tell you, we hit an enormous milestone this month at Embrace. I am so proud of this business that I created with my partner, Dr. Meg Dombrowski. If you haven't heard this story before, 4 years ago, we started a practice, an orthodontic practice, with not one patient walking in the door. We just opened the doors. Actually, to be honest with you, we took a $750,000 loan to build out a space and then opened our doors. So we started in debt, not to mention all the other debt, but we started with this dream. And now, 4 years later, we just hit an enormous, enormous milestone. We are something called Diamond Plus providers of Invisalign. Invisalign is an incredible product. I believe in it so much. It is how we empower our patients and give them the beautiful smiles that they deserve. I can speak all day about the power of Invisalign and how we use it in our office. But we just hit this magical point where we're Diamond Plus providers, which there has never been a Diamond Plus provider in all of this whole state. And I believe there's only one other in all of New England. I'm telling you this not to boast, but to let you know that the reason why we got there, what I really believe are some key tenets to getting us to achieve such enormous success in 4 years, from not one patient in the door to this enormous accolade and recognition, nationwide recognition, by the way, is because of a few key elements and business decisions that we have made. And one of the most important of all of those tenets is reflection. It blows my mind how many people miss the magic of reflection. How many people become successful by default? Now, let me tell you, consistency and hard work will get you there. It'll get you successful. If you just keep slogging away, you will make some kind of a success out of yourself. No doubt. There is nothing like hard work. But man, the key of reflection, being able to reflect on that hard work, makes you work smarter, makes you more intentional about your business decisions. Not only that, but as I mentioned, it's a powerful motivator. A powerful motivator. And we'll talk about how that happens. But I really cannot stress enough how invaluable reflection has been at Embrace Orthodontics and an integral part of our success. You know, next week, we have the week off. I think I've mentioned on this podcast many times that one of our biggest values is to give our team and ourselves a full week vacation. So we shut down for the week of Christmas to New Year's. We close the doors and just take some time. But that week is not a time that I just play video games or play other games with my kids. What it is it's a time for deep reflection. And so Dr. Meg and I will be getting together next week when everybody else is enjoying their families, and we'll take some time to reflect on this year. It's a great opportunity for us to make new goals for the upcoming year, new goalposts for us to achieve. It gives us guidance and an idea of the direction we're going in. But the sweet spot is reflection. So John Maxwell actually has a great chapter in one of his books that he talks about how to get the most out of reflection. He talks about the 4 I's. And the first one is investigation. And that's basically the heart of it. Investigation is simply asking questions. So instead of starting with statements like, this is what we did, this is how far we did, this is our success, just start with questions. And this is true for self-assessment as well, because definitely every year when I get to the end of the year and I have this week off, I've given myself some time to ask some questions. I make sure I take time to reflect and to investigate. So that's the first I, investigation. The second I is incubation. And so that requires time. Incubation lets you take all those questions that you've just answered for yourself and let them simmer. Let them just sit for a while. My favorite thing to do is to go for a walk or a run. I love running. So I want some time to just let those thoughts and those questions, the answers to the questions I've just asked myself, just kind of mull around in my head. And then the magical part is the third I, which is illumination. So cool that I just said it's the third I and then I said illumination. But anyway, that was a Freudian slip, but it's the illumination is the magic because you can't have those aha moments, those moments of clarity and creation as a business owner and a business leader if you didn't do the first two steps. The first two steps of investigation and then incubation. And then when you magically put those together, give yourself some time. You've got to throw a little bit of time in there too. You can have those aha moments. And that's when we can start creating insight. That's the fourth eye. The insight is when you add all the experience and knowledge that you have about the subject, and you start to shape and form the illumination that you had. So the illumination is that spark. It's that little bit of almost intangible, it's almost fleeting. It's something that comes to you like an idea that's going to pass through if you don't grab onto it. It reminds me of something that Elizabeth Gilbert wrote about in her book, Big Magic. She talks about creators. She talks about how all of us have this need to create, and especially highly creative people. What they often talk about is messages or insights that come to them that are not of them, but that they can grab onto and turn into something. She talks about how Michael Jackson and Prince often would battle with each other away from each other, not to each other's faces, but one would get an insight, a little inspiration, and think, if I don't grab onto this idea, it's going to float right by and hit Prince, and he's going to run with it and make an amazing success out of it. So this very ethereal idea of something that's almost out of reach, and if you can just grab onto it and then give it shape and form, that's the insight part of it. That's the real strength of a true leader. Can you have a moment of illumination and then put it into play? Now you can start sculpting it to be a business model, to be a goal. This is the same thing in our personal lives, in terms of our personal growth and development. When we give ourselves time for those 4 eyes, investigation, asking ourselves those important questions of reflecting back at honest evaluation of our values, what's important to us, and then letting it simmer, the incubation period. And the minute you get that little illumination, holding on to it, although very tentatively, and then start shaping it and forming it. Now giving it intention, giving it a goal, giving it a more clear direction to follow. I love that idea. I love that idea. And I think the important things about being able to do that is, number one, making time to do this. Now's the opportunity, this quiet COVID Christmas. Everything's a little bit gentler. There's a little bit less intensity. There's less being asked of us. So now's the time, but it only happens if you make time. Because as a mom, and I'm sure a dad, you've got to really carve the time out for yourself. So that would be the first part. And then the second part is making a space for it. To me, my environment is so important to me. I have a special chair for meditating. And let me tell you, my meditations are so good and deep when I'm in that chair. When I create the space around me, I can follow through with my intention for that purpose. So that's why finding a space to do your reflection is important. At least it is for me. It works for me. And I think it's because you give it intention. You say, this is the seat, this is the space, this is the view I want when I'm reflecting in this moment. And then third part of it is asking yourselves questions. It's not the statements. It's not the realizations. Don't jump to those realizations of the year, but ask the questions of yourself. And so you might say, well, what are those questions? What questions am I asking? I'm going to come to that next. And then I think that another powerful part of reflection is writing it down. I think writing down the question and then writing down the answer. And why is it so important to write it down? Why can't you just be thinking it as you're walking? The reason why is because when we write something down, we're more clear in our thought process. Haven't you noticed that when you're thinking something, it might kind of bubble over into other thoughts, and then you have stray thoughts, and then you're off onto the next subject, and then it reminds you of something, and then you're interrupting your thoughts the whole time. When you put pen to paper, it really directs you and forces you to be more clear. Here is my question, here is my answer. And if that's too limiting, you can ask another question. The other thing is when you go back and read the questions and the answers, there's sometimes some really interesting insights in there that you didn't realize as you were writing them down. So I think that that's the fifth part of it, is just rereading your questions and your answers. And that's part of that incubation time, is rereading them and then let it just sit and see what illuminations will come to you. So back to what I was saying about the questions, I've written out 10 questions here. So this is one of my first of many gifts to you. If you join me over in the Hive, I created these questions for you. Where are they? Oh, right over here. I created these questions because these are the kinds of questions that I ask of myself. So these are not the Embrace Orthodontics business leader questions. But let me tell you, those ones are not far off. The business leader questions are very similar. What these ones are my self-empowerment questions. These are my reflection questions for the year. These are very similar to the reflection questions we give our team. Because remember, an enormous part of the success of leadership is leading other leaders. So I want to give these tools to my whole team. So these are the kinds of questions I offer to them to reflect on. So here are my top 10 questions for myself. Number 1, what is my superpower? I love that question. That question is very exciting because for some people you can answer it right away, and for others you have to think about it a little bit. I love that question because it honors what you honor in yourself. And some of us never take the time to really love ourselves in that regard. But each one of us has a superpower, something that other people admire in you. So if you can't think of anything off the top of your head, think of what have other people told me I'm really good at. And it doesn't matter if it changes, and that's why I do this every year. I ask these questions of myself every year because sometimes I have a new superpower. The second question is, what is my Achilles heel? And ironically, many times, it's two sides of the same coin. So to share with you one of my superpowers, and I have a few. I'm learning more and more about myself, but one of my superpowers is I can fly above the noise. I can see a greater, bigger picture and let all the frivolities and the noise and the drama below me kind of melt away. That's a superpower of mine. But believe me, I felt in the past that was my biggest Achilles heel, because what it also sometimes feels like is I don't have great attention to other people's input to me. So I miss out. Sometimes I'll get shocked that someone feels a certain way about me because I just didn't realize it. Or I'll get smacked in the face when a friend maybe hasn't been a good friend all this time, and I've just been naive to the relationship. So isn't that interesting that can be an Achilles heel and a superpower? But do you see, by reflecting in this, by listening to my own answers, by writing them down, I get new insights. I get new illumination to what is important to me and how I can use my superpowers going forward. The third question, what have I achieved? What can I celebrate? That's the purpose of that question, because personally, I do not do that enough. I don't celebrate enough. And so for me, I force myself every year to say, it's time, sister, time to celebrate all the great things you have done this year. Fourth question, how have I grown? Another opportunity to celebrate. All of a sudden, as I'm going through these questions, I'm feeling better and better about myself. Why we don't ask ourselves these more frequently, I don't know. And actually, John Maxwell recommends doing many of these questions. He has his own set of questions. He says daily. I think that's such a powerful practice. But how have I grown this year? My fifth question is, where do I most need to grow? Remember, this is one of those questions that's going to help guide us into our goals for the new year. Question number 6, what lights me up? What makes my heart sing? What gets me so excited? You know, when you feel the electricity on your skin and you're just so excited to be alive. I love this question. This question speaks to your core. This question speaks to your passions. The next question is, how have I incorporated this part, the most fulfilling parts, into my life and into my work? So once I've identified what really lights me up this year, and maybe it's the same thing every year, but it can change too. The follow-up question was, how have I incorporated that in my year and in my life? And I think a powerful part of business leadership is, how have I incorporated it into my business? Because one of my biggest intentions is to go to work every day and love what I do. I know this is possible, but I have to start incorporating what keeps me on fire into my business, into my work. We're now at number 8. How can I be more intentional about doing what brings me joy and makes me feel alive? So in question 7, where I ask myself, how have I done this? The next question is, how can I be more intentional about doing more? This is where I'm doubling down on it. You know, I felt so great this year when we did these 3 things. That really made me feel alive. Well, if I'm going to grow next year, let me do more of that. What made me feel more alive? I'm going to feel even more of that next year. And let me tell you, this is the magic of the success in your business too. Because when you're excited, when you're feeling alive, when you're feeling completely purposeful in your business pursuits, the wealth and the abundance just flows. That is the sweet spot. Question number 9, I ask myself always, what are my core values? And interestingly, they do change. What are those core values? Why are they important to me? Sitting down again and reminding myself of what is most important in my heart. And then question number 10, how can I continue to double down on the best parts of me? And that's when I take this whole list and I see what things I'm really good at. What are my superpowers? What are my values? What are the parts of life that just light me up? And how can I just double down on all of those and feel even better and greater about myself? So there's my gift to you. I promise you, if you do this, you will just be floating on cloud 9, and the dividends will continue to pay off. Merry, Merry Christmas to you. Thank you for joining me today. I have so many more gifts coming your way. Check me out on Facebook. Look for the Business of Happiness Hive, and we'll have all this and more for you there. And next week, get ready for Mr. John Laredo, a really special interview. Thank you again. Merry Christmas. And today is going to be a great day. Bye-bye.